Now, it's been a great weekend for Premier League soccer, and of course it was the final of the Carabao Cup, the League Cup as it's known. Usually a bit of a non-event. I think City have won it several times in the last few years, but really most teams don't bother too much, particularly in the early stages. But yesterday at Wembley, Chelsea and Liverpool met. It was a fabulous game. The final score after 90 minutes, 0-0, and it went to a penalty shootout, which in itself was fabulous. And there was an Irish hero as well, Caoimhín Kelleher, a young man from Cork who scored a winning penalty for Liverpool. It was a great day, and I'm joined now by Liam Brady and John Giles to discuss the game and indeed some of the things that surrounded it. Liam, it's been a difficult few days for Chelsea because of the Russia-Ukraine situation, and Abramovich is featuring in that, and he has decided to hand the club over to a group of people who are regarded as trustees of the club. It's a very unconvincing move, but it removes the possibility that the $1.5 billion that Chelsea owe Abramovich won't be taken in case the British government decide to seize Chelsea Football Club as an asset of an oligarch. This can't happen. But when Thomas Tuchel was asked in Friday's press conference if he thought removing the Champions League final from St. Petersburg, Putin's home city, to Paris was a good thing, he said, yes, it is. And yesterday, when Chelsea walked on the pitch, they wore the Ukraine colours, blue, which of course is their natural colour, but also with a yellow streak in it. And they participated in a laying of a wreath with the Liverpool captain, Virgil van Dijk. I think that the football people at Chelsea have behaved with courage and in an impeccable way. It isn't football, but it is important, isn't it, that football stands beside the people of Ukraine?
Oh, I agree with you absolutely, Eamon. Yeah, the whole of the football world, I think, is coming together, apart from maybe the leaders of FIFA.
Yes.
Infantino, I think, has been a bit hesitant to come out and ban Russia. They should be banned from the World Cup,
yes.
In my opinion. He's been slow to get off the mark there, but as you know, he's been very close to Putin over the last few years. So, I admire what Chelsea have done. It can't be easy for them because they say Abramovich has close ties to Putin. I'm not an expert on that, but he obviously has made a lot of money over in Russia, and he's a very wealthy man. And I think the move with Chelsea was to protect his assets, really.
Yes. Yeah, John, Thomas Tuchel was asked on Friday's press conference about moving the Champions League final from St. Petersburg, which is Putin's home city, to Paris. And he was unequivocal. He said, yes, it's the right thing. It takes courage, rare courage, really, to stand up and be counted like that. And it was important for football, I think.
Yeah, I think the response from the football people, Eamon, has been very, very good. You know, we saw at Everton the other day, all the pitches and all the players have behaved the way you would expect them to behave, in the right way.
Yes.
And as far as the Chelsea Abramovich, I mean, what he put out was a lot of rubbish. And, he was sort of giving the club away, but he wasn't giving the club away.
Yeah.
And he hasn't once objected to Russia's behaviour.
No. Well, he's a Russian.
Well, certainly publicly. I'm sure he hasn't anyway. And he's supposed to be a big pal of Putin's.
Yeah.
And I wish the FIFA had come out as strongly as the players and the football people that we've seen so far have done.
Yes, and just let me say, for the benefit of our listeners, I know you and Liam will know, the English FA have said they won't play Russia in the foreseeable future at all. Yeah. Poland, who are in the same group as them and due to play them in a World Cup qualifier, have said they will not play them. And the Czech Republic have also said they won't play them. So they are being isolated. But as you both said, FIFA want to play these games at neutral grounds, and they won't put Russia out of the World Cup. But we know what FIFA is like. We know how corrupt FIFA has been, and we'll see that in its full colours when the World Cup this year is played in Qatar. but we don't want to turn this into a politics show. So, Liam, I'll ask you about the match yesterday. It was, I thought, superb. 0-0 draw. Both teams missed good chances. Both goalkeepers made good saves. Mendy made a fantastic save from Mane, and Kevin Kelleher, after 5 or 6 minutes, had to make a very, very good reaction save from Mason Mount. So a real game of football between two of the best teams in England.
Yeah, high quality football, Eamon, end to end. Great passing, great combination play. A lot of great players out on the pitch. It was really, really entertaining for a 0-0. And of course, we had the drama of penalties, and Kevin Kelleher come out the hero, didn't he? But if I could say one thing, I didn't quite understand why Tuchel took the goalkeeper off.
No, I thought it was mad. Mad.
Well, I think this guy is thinks he's some kind of genius, a football genius. I'm not really buying into him. I know he's doing a tremendous job at Chelsea, and they won the Champions League and things like that. But I think he's in love with himself. I think this was a move to say, look how good I am.
Yes.
It backfired really. He couldn't have backfired any more than the keeper he didn't save any of the 11 penalties, and then he goes and misses himself.
Yeah, John, I would always think that the keeper who's been playing for 2 hours at that stage is warmed up, tuned in, wired, and ready to rock. To take a guy who's been sitting there for 2 hours, cold on the bench, and put him on, I think is questionable anyway. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't do it, Eamon. But reading the stuff yesterday, they said that the lad that came in, it has a really good record at the penalty shootouts.
Yeah, Kepa.
Yeah, that he saved 4 of the last 5 or whatever it was.
That's right.
For the shootouts. It's not something I would do. I'm only telling you what could be in Tuchel's head in that, for this particular thing. And don't forget, there was a row a few years ago about the keepers. Remember, he wouldn't come off, Eamon.
Yeah, that's right, Kepa. Same guy.
Yeah. So who was manager then?
Yeah, I think it was Mourinho, maybe.
It could have been. But anyway, it seems to be a policy.
It was actually Conte, I think.
Yeah. Well, if you're asking me, I wouldn't do it. I'd leave the keeper on that's been playing for the whole match. But I'm only giving you the reason that Tuchel did what he did, and other managers have done it. That he's a good penalty saver.
Yeah.
But it goes... don't forget, it wasn't he saving that did it. It was missing the penalty.
Yep. Liam, you wanted to come in there?
Yeah, no, I think it could be any number of guys as manager of Chelsea because they've changed so many. Yeah. But I have a feeling it was Sarri, was it?
Maybe. Yes, it
South
was.
American, and he walked down the tunnel. Do you remember he walked down the tunnel?
Yes,
that's right. Yes.
The goalkeeper refused to come off. But, go on, John. Yeah, well, he has a good record in penalty shootout. But, I thought Liverpool just about deserved to win, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it was a great game, Eamon. I just say one thing, and I said it before. I'm not in favour of the goalkeepers having to take the penalties.
Yes.
I don't think it's right. I think they could go back around again, Eamon. Start again from scratch, yesterday. Instead of the goalkeepers go.
No, I agree.
It was one of the international matches, Eamon, too.
Yeah.
It happened that the goalkeeper missed it.
Yeah, I don't. I actually agree with that. And Liam, would you have some sympathy with that?
Yeah, well, I'd agree with John. Yeah, they're under enough pressure anyway, trying to save the penalties. The spotlight's on them, and it's a bit unfair to be asking to take the penalties. But Keller's was a fine penalty, as you said, Eamon. He did play outfield when he was a youngster, and it looked like it, didn't it?
Yes, it did. And it was just to go back to the match, John, this fella, Luis Diaz, that they signed for 37.5 million from Porto. Boy, he looks a hell of a player, doesn't he?
Yeah, he looks very good, Eamon. So far, so good. There's a long way to go, as we know. But he looks a very, 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 very good player. And he's playing on the left side as well. And he seems to be able to beat players, get the crosses in. Seems to have good football intelligence. So he looks like a winner, Eamon.
Yeah,
but I'm not giving them the full credit yet.
We know you don't rush, John, with your praise.
Well, we've seen it before, and somebody comes on, they have a great start, and then they don't continue.
I know that. No,
But anyway, but he does look the part, definitely.
Liam, he looks a good buy for 37.5 million, notwithstanding John's qualification, which I agree with, of course. You can come in, burst on the scene, love it, and then you have to judge a player over time.
Yeah, you have to judge him over time, and he's playing in a great team, and he's gone into a great team that are on form, great players in and around him, so that makes life a lot easier when you're playing in such a fine team. I just wonder if Liverpool have bought him thinking, well, Salah might not stay, and we might not want to break our wage structure for Salah. So
you and I discussed this, Liam, during the week when we were talking to each other off the podcast. And your take on it is really interesting, and I'd like to run it by. My take on it was pay him whatever he's worth, which would put him up 100 grand a week because, you know, he's a top player, maybe the best player in Europe at the moment in terms of assists and goals. And you tell me what your attitude is, because it's really interesting, and I'd like to put it to John then.
No, I was thinking, like, they have a real good team spirit at Liverpool. Everybody's pulling in the right direction. They don't seem to have any players causing any problems and things like that. But they've always got the Salah contract thing to deal with. Now, if you go and give him, you know, £400,000 per week, and the other lads are on between 100 and 200,000, and for some reason his form dips and things like that, I think you're making a problem for everybody. I've seen it happen so many times. It happened at Arsenal with Ozil.
Aubameyang.
Yeah, well, Ozil, you know, I think when Ramsey's contract was coming up, Ramsey quite rightly said, well, you know, I'm playing an awful lot better than Ozil is, and, you know, he's on probably 3 times, 4 times more than I am.
Yeah.
And I think this is the problems that can create. So perhaps Liverpool have bought Diaz thinking, okay, well, if Salah won't sign the contract for what he wants, the increase we want to give him, if he won't take it, he won't accept it, well, we sell him and we've got a replacement in Diaz.
Yeah, John, we have to remember in this conversation that they are American owners, and they run the Boston Red Sox, and they had the equivalent of a baseball batter, the equivalent of Salah, who was doing wonders, and they didn't accommodate him, let him go, and the club failed, and he went off and won a championship. What's your take on it, John? Liam's point.
I mean, I did have a conversation with you about this a week ago.
Yeah,
and it was that I think they might be. I think as Liam has suggested there, buying this lad to replace Salah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised one bit, Eamon, if that's the case, because these guys do it the American way. Yeah. And I don't think they care whether it's Salah or anybody else, that if you have this policy that anybody over 30 is not going to get a big contract, I think that's what they'll do.
Yeah, I think Salah's just 30, but the point is he's earning about 200 grand, 300,000 a week less than Pogba's been offered by Manchester United. My own view is that if you took Salah out of that team, you'd weaken it to the point that it would really hurt.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, Eamon. We're only trying to talk now about how these guys think.
No, I know that, but
what could happen. You know, we all love Salah, and he should be on getting his 300, 400 grand.
No, but Liam doesn't
There's
think
no doubt about that.
Liam thinks, and it made me think. If Liam thinks something, I think, okay, hold on a minute, I'll have to review my own view, which might be biased. Liam thinks they may be better keeping the wage structure as is, and that's, I think, I'm not speaking for Liam now, but he's there. But I think Wenger had a lot of the same view, and it took a long time to force him to change his opinion. I suppose what I'm asking you is, do you think you should make exceptions for great players?
Of course.
Right.
Of course, Eamon. I mean, it's like the problem at Liverpool is there. Like what's the lad they let go to Paris Saint-Germain? He's not Salah. But he's a very, very good player.
Wijnaldum. Yeah, he can't get in the team.
Well, if that's their policy, Eamon, I don't like. I love Salah. You love Salah. Liam loves Salah. I'm not giving 400 grand a week if he wanted it.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we think. But I'm only trying to think the way these fellas think, that the American way, whether it be baseball or American football or anything, if they have a policy that if the fella's 30, he's not going to get a new contract. And we're talking about Diaz. And I think, and my feeling is that they're buying him now as a young player to maybe replace Salah if and when it comes to the situation where they either have to pay him or let him go.
Right. You'd pay.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they let him go.
You'd pay him. I'd pay him. Liam, you're not so sure.
No, it's a kind of dilemma, isn't it?
Yes, it
that
is.
They have to decide.
Serious dilemma.
I'd like to ask John if that great Leeds team he was in, if there was anyone way out and above, of the other players earning. I don't think. John is going to answer me now, but I have a feeling Don Revie wouldn't have had that situation because it can create problems.
Yeah, it was different situations, Liam. But the principle is right. It didn't happen. And I understand what you're saying, that it's very, very easy to break up a team spirit situation, Eamon. If you give Salah 400 grand a week and Henderson is earning 150 grand a week, it can do that. I think the Americans, the way they do their business, wouldn't even be thinking that way, Liam. You know what I mean? I agree with you, but they'd be looking at it as a money situation totally, not team spirit or anything else to go with that. And that's why I think they're doing what they're doing. In your case, I agree with what you're saying. It could be the right thing for them to do in terms of team spirit. They wouldn't be doing it for that reason. They'd be doing it for a money situation. But we're trying to figure out what will happen, what could happen. And they're two different arguments or ideas on, and I agree with Liam on that. It could cause really, really big trouble, Eamon.
Yes.
But I think the Americans are not thinking like that at the moment. They're thinking as a money situation.
Yeah, and of course in American football, in the NFL, there is a salary cap. It doesn't apply to so much to players, but the club can only spend so much on players. We better move on, but at least we'll watch and see, because at the end of this season, Mo Salah will be 6 months away from being able to walk out the door and talk to somebody else, and I think that would be a serious blow. It's a complicated argument, but it's interesting, and as I say, if Liam Brady thinks it, I'm going to review my own position. Now, John, you've had a...
You don't listen to me then.
Oh, Jesus, we all listen to you. You're up there with the deities. Of course I listen. But,
I'm only kidding, Eamon.
At least Liam listens to the answers. Liam, I want to ask you first, because John has a lot to say about this. Leeds United have sacked Marcelo Bielsa. It's a big shock. He got them into the Premier League. They've had 3 bad defeats now: Tottenham, Manchester United, and I think it was Liverpool, 6-0.
Liverpool, Spurs. Yeah, Liverpool. Yeah. United got 4 against them. Liverpool got 6, and Spurs got 4.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the Leeds directors or whoever owns it has made the call. Yeah. It is a very sad situation, because he's done such a marvellous job for Leeds. But it's a results business, Eamon. Always was, always will be.
Yes. And
I think they're looking at the league table. They're looking at the amount of goals they're conceding and thinking, we've got to do something about it. But I'm very sad, because he's done a brilliant job for Leeds, and he's different the way he plays his football.
Yes.
His football when Leeds were at their best was great to watch.
Yeah, and they've got Phillips and Bamford missing. Phillips is a current England international and played every game in the Euros, and is a very good defensive midfield player. Bamford is a goal scorer. John, looking at the league table, they're in trouble, John. Big trouble. The team below them, Everton are a point behind them, but they've 2 games in hand. Burnley are 2 points behind them, and they've got 2 games in hand, and they're sinking fast. Tell us what your take on it is.
Well, I think it's outrageous what they've done.
Right.
I mean, I have just written it down here. The Leeds owner, Andrew Radzani, and the director of football, Victor Orte, he said the prize Bielsa for what he did for the club, but said recent results and performances have not met their expectations.
Yeah.
Right? Now, they have 3 of their main players out, Eamon, on long-term injuries.
Yes, and very long-term, yes.
3 to 4 months. Have the owners ever thought to go to Bielsa and say, look, here's a few bob. I think we need some players to help you out on this.
Yes.
Their expectations.
Yes.
I mean, when he went to the club, they had nothing.
Yeah.
They've hardly spent 2 bob in players in relation to other clubs to do what they've done.
Yeah.
They've had a bad time in recent times, all right, but they haven't helped them in any way.
No.
And then the performances and results are not reaching their expectations.
Yes.
Right?
They want it for nothing.
Want it for nothing. And now that they say that his hard time, and they've introduced a new manager now, Jesse March, which they've obviously had lined up for a while.
Yeah, from Leipzig. He's a former Leipzig manager, another German.
Yeah. Another German. It hasn't done, from what I read, hasn't done all that well in America, whatever he's been. But I think the way they've treated him was terrible. I don't think they helped him in any way. And then when it comes to the crunch with the players missing, and he's hardly spent any money since he's been there, Eamon.
No, he hasn't.
But anyway, that's my take on it. I think that their expectations. So I hope they do reach their expectations with this new guy, and spend a few bob to give him a chance. Not like Bielsa, who's performed miracles for them.
Right.
And I think they treated him badly.
Yeah, and we've seen that syndrome before, have we? As soon as a new coach comes in, they start spending the money. Liam, Arsenal are in a great position now to qualify as a top 4 side for the Champions League. They've 3 games in hand of Manchester United and West Ham, who are ahead of them, immediately ahead of them. They're level on points with West Ham. They're 2 points behind Manchester United. They had a good win against Wolves last Thursday night, last-minute goal from Lacazette. You were at the game. I know you have had and expressed your reservations about where Arteta is going, but just on the stats that I'm looking at in front of me, this is a golden opportunity to get in the top 4.
Oh, absolutely, Eamon. And if they do get in the top 4 after the start they've had to the league, because they lost the first 3 games, Arteta will have done a really, really good job. And, I'll have to review my opinions.
Yeah.
I think what's really been good for Arsenal in recent weeks has been the form of the young players, particularly Smith Rowe and Saka.
Yes.
And even Xhaka, our friend, who I've been enormously critical about,
we all have, yes.
Discipline in the last few games, and he's played an awful lot better. I think Thomas Partey is beginning to show why Arteta paid the amount of money he paid from Atletico Madrid. He's playing really well at the moment too. But I kind of reserve my judgment because I was at the match against Wolves, and Wolves outplayed Arsenal totally in the first half and could have scored 3 goals, and Moutinho in midfield was
brilliant,
running the show.
Yeah.
Running the show. But at half time, I don't know what happened in the dressing room, but they come out the second half and they just sat back and they were negative and didn't try to attack. And when you're only 1 up and you do that, all it took was Arsenal getting that goal.
Yeah.
Which they did, and then it lifted everybody, and they finished strongly, Arsenal, and deserved to win in the end. So it was a great win, and they are in a great position. With Spurs losing against Burnley, nobody expected that after beating Man City the week before.
Yeah. And
then Manchester United only drawing against Watford yesterday or Saturday. So all the results are going Arsenal's way, and they've got a great chance of finishing 4th.
Yeah, John, the Watford match, Watford second from bottom, and with Roy Hodgson now stepping in to try and do the miracle of keeping them in the division, which even on the numbers looks questionable. Manchester United, apparently 22 shots, but only 1 that tested the Watford goalkeeper, and Ronaldo hit the post. They look really that they're in 4th position at the moment. They played more games than Arsenal, as I've just pointed out. But this guy doesn't look like a miracle worker, although the stats will say he only lost 1 of the 10 games he's been in charge in the league. But they got some whoppers coming up, including Liverpool and Man City.
Yeah, they've had a lot of draws, Eamon, I think,
yeah, they
as well.
have. Yeah,
in that particular way. But, every time I read the paper, there's something critical about him. One of the players last week had a go at him over certain things. And
Fred.
Then you see Ronaldo scored one goal in 8 games or something like that. I mean, like every time I see him in the paper, he's trying to make a case for himself, every time. And it's, again, I go back to the interim manager, I mean, players have the right now to say things in the paper that they wouldn't normally say if the manager was there for 2 or 3 years or whatever it might be. It's still a mess, Eamon.
Yes.
It's still a mess, and I can't see it. I can't really see it getting any better.
No, I can't either. Liam, your take on United and this fella Ralph Rangnick.
Well, I suppose on the podcast, Manchester United are the team we talk about most, aren't they? Because, the huge club, and, it's been a mess for years and years and years now, since Alex Ferguson's left, really.
Yes.
So that's got to be best part of 10 years now that this is going on. And it's not been good. And for United, not to finish in the top 4 is really drastic, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Given the money they've spent.
I watched the highlights of the game against Watford. They should have won about 4 or 5 then, and we wouldn't be having this discussion now. So they're in a mess, as John says. The players have got license. When the manager is not installed full time, the players have got license to complain about things. There seems to be an awful lot of egos in that dressing room. We talked about wages and Salah. There must be people looking at Pogba and saying, how come he's getting the amount of money he's getting for what he's delivering? So it's the atmosphere there is not great in the squad and in and around the manager. So I think once that's the situation, you're going to get poor results, and that has to be sorted out before United return back to what they once were.
I'd just like to ask both you and John, this is not a job that many coaches will covet, is it, John?
Oh, I think everybody will covet, Simon. It's not just a job. Oh, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, with the players they have, you have to get. Say to put Conte in there, Eamon.
Conte's a special case, maybe, and he was willing.
There's lots of managers around him. I think that there's no manager who wouldn't take it up. A top manager. Said they got a Tuchel, and there's bound to be managers out there somewhere, Eamon, that if the club know their stuff, this is the fellas to go for.
I don't agree with you, John. They've got their 2 strikers. Are 37 years old in one case, and Cavani, who wants to leave anyway, is 35. I don't.
No, Eamon, if I can come in there, I don't think John's saying that. I think John is saying, you're going to get backing from the United people, aren't you? Because they've got money to burn, haven't they? They can.
They're not fond of burning it.
Yeah, but they have burned quite a lot of it lately. But if there is, I agree with John. It's a job that most top managers would covet, because they know they're going to get backing, Right. But what they have to do, as John said time and time again, is got to let the manager make the decisions. So if Conte was to come in or Pochettino was to come in, let him choose the players, and then you back him in that direction,
Yeah, they're highly unlikely to do that.
Sorry?
They're highly unlikely to do that, Liam.
Well, they haven't done it, but look where they are by not doing it.
Yeah, well, my opinion is they're in terminal decline, because if you look at the back 4, Liam, for example, he played Lindelof at right back last week in Madrid against Atletico. Maguire is having a nightmare. I think they paid far too much money for him. He's not able for the responsibility that's been thrust upon him, i.e. to be captain and leader of that team in the way that Van Dijk is at Liverpool. They have some really, really pretty ordinary players. Fred, the midfield at the weekend, John, I put this to you. Fred and Matic. I mean, they need to buy a lot of players, John. and spend an awful lot of money.
I mean, if you go through the players, I mean, the goalkeeper's okay. The two fullbacks, they've got three fullbacks there. Yeah. Okay, Maguire's not playing as well as he can. They've got Fernandes. They do need players, I mean. But if you have the resources to buy the players, I mean, for any manager in the game, you're not going to go to a club, I mean, mostly as a manager, who are doing well, but they have to have the potential to do well. And United have the potential, as Liam said, they have money to buy players. They've got a good basic group of players there to start off with, Eamon. You know, any manager, but the manager, what would stop them getting the job, as Liam said there, it would be not having the conditions to do what needs to be done.
Yes.
That's what would stop them. That's why Conte wouldn't go for the job. Pochettino might go, because the first thing they'll ask is, am I a charge in the buying and selling here? And if they say, no, we have a system, I say, thanks very much, and I can't be bothered with that.
Right, and don't forget, Ralph Rangnick is moving upstairs to be Director of Football. Just a final question to both of you. John, I know you and I watched Everton at home to City. City ground them down. Everton are in big trouble now. If it wasn't for Leeds, they got 2 games in hand of Leeds, but Everton are as low in the table as I can ever remember them being. Frank Lampard, first half, they really gave City a go, and they were up for it. The crowd were behind them, but gradually City wore them down, got their 1-0. Frank Lampard is, I think, a coach we both, I'm not sure about Liam because I haven't spoken to him about it, respect, but they've got a job and it has to stay in the division.
Oh, they have, Eamon, but he's only been there a couple of weeks. You know, I think they will get out of it. I think it'll take him a bit of time, like most managers, to get in the job. And playing City, I mean, that's the best I've seen City play. City have been winning matches, Eamon, but I thought they didn't play all that well at all. Actually, they won 1-0, as we know, but I thought it was a really, really good performance from City, because they were very dogged, Everton. They weren't going to be broken down easily. It took a lot to do to keep playing, which they did, and got the winner near the end. So it was a good performance for him. But from Frank's point of view, you know, he's only there two or three matches. It'll take a little bit of time. He hasn't got that much time at the moment to get the results, but I think they'll be okay. I think they'll survive this season, and then it gives them a chance to get going and really get going next season.
Now, John, and I'll go to Liam, I'm not sure if Liam saw this, there was a clear penalty for Everton in the last 5 minutes. There was no question about it. Rodri handled the ball, end of story.
Yeah, I thought it was a penalty, Eamon.
And Frank Lampard said afterwards, I don't know what they were looking at. It went to VAR. It shouldn't have even gone to VAR. It was a clear penalty.
Well, it should have been a penalty, but you don't hear Guardiola saying anything about it, Eamon. And next week, if it goes Frank Lampard's way, as it all with the managers, they're not going to say a word about it, Eamon. They're not going to say, well, that we didn't deserve that or that. But
no.
To me, it looked like a penalty.
Yeah, Liam,
definitely.
Did you see it?
I did, but the shots, the video footage that we saw, that VAR were looking at, I couldn't really tell if it was on his chest or on his arm.
No, he moved his arm out, Liam.
No, Eamon, if you want Liam's opinion,
let me finish. Let me finish.
Sorry.
When I watched Match of the Day, they had a different camera view, and it was handball. It was quite a little, quite a way down his arm,
Yeah.
And almost on his face, you could see Rodri had handled the ball, didn't you? He looked guilty, didn't he?
He did, yeah, absolutely.
But for the referee and what VAR saw, I don't think they could tell whether it was on his arm or on his chest. So I don't know whether they didn't see enough video cameras or they didn't want the game to, go on too long, or the decision to take too long, and that's why they decided, well, we can't make our minds up, But it was a poor decision, having seen what I saw on Match of the Day.
Okay, John and Liam, John Giles and Liam Brady, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And I'm sorry, John, that I interrupted Liam. I didn't.
Well, that's okay, Eamon. Well, you're asking his opinion, and then you're coming in on top of him.
I tell you what, I'm losing control of this podcast. I'm supposed to be the anchor man. Anyway, I speak on behalf of our listeners. We're grateful to you, John and Liam, every week for talking about the game that we all love and disagree about occasionally. But thank you both very much.